we'll continue our Geodatabase talk series, and today we're going to discuss tables. What's up, y'all? This is Hussein Nasser from iGeometry Podcast, and welcome to another Geodatabase talk. This is a series where we just sit down and just discuss in 10 minutes or less a GIS topic, a geographic information topic, and it happens to be Geodatabase today. All right, so in the previous episode, we discussed what is a geodatabase. We start to define that concept. It's a little bit vague definition, but hopefully with this geodatabase podcast, this episode, it's going to become slightly more clear. So we're going to discuss tables. So back in the days, right, we have when we think of a table, right, we either think of a CSV file, an Excel sheet, maybe, right? There's a table there. An HTML could be a table. You can put tables there. Access database, Microsoft Access has tables. Then you have MySQL has table as well, right? Tables. So different kind of databases. Postgres has tables. Oracle has tables. SQLServer has the concept of tables. However, so we have these abstractions of tables in different storage mediums. However, reading and writing to these tables are completely different, right? To write to SQL Server, you need to do a SQL statement, but could be slightly different syntax from Oracle versus Access versus obviously a CSV. You don't really have SQL there, but that polyglot way of having different platforms and different databases, and then different ways to read and write led to the concept of geodatabase. So to do two things, to abstract this. So when I talk to a table, I want to talk to a table. I don't really care where this table lives. So that's the first reason the Esri developed the table concept or the geodatabase concept. And the second reason is obviously to add more and more functionalities on top of this layer, right? Things like the versioning and all that stuff that we're going to discuss hopefully in the coming episodes. All right, so these are the two main reasons where we have these the geodatabase concept and the table concept. Now, how beneficial is this for me? Now, if I have a table today, if I have a geodatabase, you have to tell me what this geodatabase sits on top of. Is this geodatabase on top of file geodatabase, simple files, which is an Esri proprietary format? Is it on top of Postgres? Is it 9.5 Postgres, 9.6, 10? Is it SQL Server? Is it Oracle? Is it DB2? Is it Netezza? What other different formats? What other databases? So once you know that, you create a geodatabase, and then that you have this layer on top of that. So the next thing you do is you say, I want to create a table. Okay, and you can create a table, and instead of creating a table directly through the database, like going into Postgres and say, hey, create table, blah, right? Where you have different platforms, what you do instead, talk to the geodatabase, which is this. It's hard to picture in a podcast, but think of it as like as a layer, as a shield on top of whatever your database or whatever your storage medium at the back end. So you say, hey, Geodatabase, go ahead and create a table for me. And there is this certain magic that knows, oh, I'm connected to Postgres. Oh, I should do this syntax, this SQL syntax. Oh, I'm connected to SQL Server. I should do this syntax. Oh, this is a file geodatabase. Oh, that doesn't have even SQL, right? It has like a simple different format. Or this is a CSV. Oh, this is just a shapefile. So let me do it differently. So creating a table from the API of the geodatabase, which is essentially Arc objects. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Arc objects. If not, you can refer to my YouTube channel. Just type Arc objects or geometry. We did a lot of shows on Arc objects, so you're gonna find a lot of stuff there. But yeah, so Arc object is this library on top of the geodatabase that lets you do that stuff. So you can create a table. As a client, now you can build applications that talks to the geodatabase, theoretically talks to the geodatabase and say, no, I want to create a table. Hey, I want to populate this table. Hey, insert this row. You will create a cursor and you start inserting in this row, right? And you would, for example, you want to read from this table. Oh, I want to read where this column is equal, I don't know, age is greater than 30 or whatever, right? So you can start doing that. But the beauty of this is your code does not change, and it doesn't care what is the back end is. You can say, oh, I want to write an application that, for example, it shows all the trees in a given extent, and for example, it selects all the trees that needs to be maintained, for example, in a given area. Or we need to do some vegetation on these in this block, and these are the areas, or this is the trees that needs to be trimmed, for example. Do you trim trees or bushes? I don't know. Right. So your query will be something where trees where vegetation needed equal true, for example, like a Boolean. But instead of executing the SQL in every single database, which is different, you'll write one application that says, hey, open cursor on this table from the geodatabase. You got the table, and then you say, add an I filter, a query filter, and says there's where a clause where this field is equal this, and then just like that you got it back. All right, so theoretically, if your geodatabase sits on top of Postgres, you can change that. You can change it from Postgres to something else, and your application should work just normally. Versus if you don't have the concept of the geodatabase, then it's very hard to migrate, right? Because your application, you'll do a select statement, and you'll do certain SQL syntax that only work for Postgres, but it doesn't work for SQL Server, but it doesn't work for file geodatabase, right? So that geodatabase creates this abstraction, and this is the concept of tables essentially. So that's the first construct or artifact that is in the geodatabase that allows you to do to abstract the concept of tables. So next episode we're going to discuss the feature classes, hopefully. So tables does have only columns and rows, very basic stuff. You can store stuff in them, you can read, you can write, you can even alter stuff, you can add field. There are a lot of GP tools in ArcMap. So these tools, which is Arc objects, talk to the geodatabase directly. Let's take a break and talk about what are the applications that today talks to the geodatabase. So today the major thick clients that talk to the geodatabase are, first is ArcMap. ArcMap knows how to talk to the geodatabase because it sits on top of Arc objects. You can write applications using Arc object on top of ArcMap. We did a lot of shows in this channel. Just Google or just YouTube that, and then in the geometry channel you see Arc objects and a lot of how to build Arc objects on top of ArcMap using add-ins. So you can build your own application. So ArcMap is they're one of the clients. ArcGIS Pro is another new 64-bit client with multi-threading capabilities that talks to the geodatabase as well. right? So another major client is the ArcGIS server. That's another, think of it as a client. But what you do is, and we discussed ArcGIS server in another series, but ArcGIS server knows how to talk to the geodatabase. So if you publish a Postgres geodatabase or a table from Postgres geodatabase or SQL Server or a file geodatabase, it just knows how to talk to all of them, right? As long as you should have, obviously, the Oracle or the database clients, right? So this is something we didn't discuss, right? So if I want to talk, if I am a client, ArcMap sitting on my machine, and the geodatabase is let's say on another server, say Oracle, and I created a geodatabase. If I want to talk to Oracle, I need to talk to the geodatabase, but geodatabase sits on top of Oracle. So my client as ArcMap need to understand how to talk to the Oracle database, right? So it needs these third-party client libraries for Oracle or SQL Server or Postgres. Postgres doesn't really. Postgres ships usually with ArcMap as a client library, so you don't really need to install on the same machine. But that's, yeah, so we don't want to derail the conversation here, but let's just end here. So hopefully, guys, you enjoyed this episode. We're going to talk more about feature classes, where actual the GIS work is, and the next episode, and some more cool stuff coming. Stay tuned. Goodbye.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.